I primarily think a good starting point for understanding this is to start thinking about that the reconciliation of God with his creation exists in the person of Christ. So that happens at the conception. So that harmony is achieved in that work. So that starts to define how we view the role of the humanity in that, because this is God made one with man. And so that man will, the life he lives will be the life that I am partaking in. And so that has value.
I'm Todd, and I was naughty. I did everything wrong. I got kicked out of art school, I drank heavily, and I looked to other religions and versions of spirituality to get fulfilled. The problem was, I was in the occult and I didn't even know it. My life was a wreck, and I had to learn what it meant to have a relationship with Jesus.
And I'm Laura. I was super nice. I did everything right. I got saved young, went to Moody Bible Institute, got married, and followed the Christian rules to having a good life. The problem was that formula didn't work. I had to change how I related with Jesus.
At the end of the day, what I learned is the very simple truth. Jesus is the answer, and the only one that will ever actually fulfill you.
Naughty versus nice.
And welcome back to Naughty versus Nice. I'm Todd.
And I'm Laura.
And I'm Kelly. Thanks for letting me in.
Oh, wait, you know what? Start it again. I want to try something different.
Uh-oh.
I know.
Ooh.
Oh, boy.
All right. Just go.
And welcome back to Naughty versus Nice. I am one of your co-hosts, Todd.
Okay, well, I'm just Laura.
Is that creepy?
You're also a co-host.
That's right.
He tried to give you something to say.
I know. I was trying to give you
sorry.
co-hosteries.
I'm sorry. I don't do well unless I've been told ahead of time things. I don't do spontaneous. You guys know this.
The older I get, the less I can improv too. So,
I can't think of words.
I become befuddled. I'm like, wait, what are we talking about? What is going on?
And I find myself in every setting, like the doctor's office, the vet, the grocery store, like women my age would be like, isn't it so weird that we're dumb now? Like we can't remember words. And then conversations between Kelly and I and between my friend and I, my other friend, it's like the pyramid show, where the two sat across from each other and it's red, it's circle, and you use it in the circus. And like we have to do that to get ideas across because we're dumb now. Dumb.
We are.
Generation X, how far we have fallen, I guess.
I know.
Remember when we thought we were invincible and everybody did grunge things?
I had a friend who used to say that. Remember when we were young and vivacious? And I was like, I don't think I was ever vivacious. He's giving me way too much credit. Too much credit.
Well, here's the thing that kind of bothers me a little bit. Like all the dumb stuff I ever did in my life was like outside, outdoors. It involved the risk of maybe getting hit by a car, falling out of a moving car, or falling off of something and breaking a bone or something. And now it seems like all the kids today, all the dangerous things that they're involved in are on the internet and getting doxxed or revealing too much about themselves or saying or doing something embarrassing or something like it's weird. It's just different.
Here, it just came to my mind. I'm pretty sure I've told Kelly the most hillbilly things I can remember doing as a kid is one, we swam in the ditches when they flood in our yard. And when they used to they didn't repave, they would put tar down like on the cracks or something and it would bubble and we would go out and pop it with our toes. And then my mother was not happy with me about that. But those are my hillbilly things that we did instead of watching screens all the time. I'm less angry than you, but I see it.
It's the difference between indoor cats and outdoor cats, something along those lines.
I'm an indoor cat now, though.
That's what's happened. I've turned into an indoor cat, which is, funny about the whole thing. I go out, I go mow the lawn and trim and barely even do a good job on that. I'm outside for like an hour and a half. I'm sweating. I feel like I'm dying. And it's just like 90% humidity or whatever and 90 degrees. It's not even that hot,
Or if it gets dark out, I need to be home. I don't know why I'm outside still. I need to go home. It's dark out. So when the time changes in November, I'm a real mess. I'm like, it's 3:30. I gotta go. I don't know what's happening. Anywho, we've gone down a rabbit trail. So we're back on our part 2 of the incarnation. So last episode felt very theology heavy, and I'm not ever going to not be theology heavy. But the second part of the study, as I prepared it, was more the implications. So what does this look like? What do we do in light of this? And I think my first one, and I don't even actually remember if I listed anywhere, is to just begin to study it, because just the idea of itself, the incarnation, and start, I think things have to start being seen through that lens now. And I get it. Somebody's probably like, well, how do you do that? I think, well, once you start studying it, you start seeing it everywhere. But the primary way I think you're going to know that is we understand the importance and the centrality of the incarnation in God's perspective and in his treatment of it throughout all of history. We need to now read the scriptures with that in mind. So if everything is about Christ, and it is expressly so in the incarnation and the work of reconciliation that's in just him existing, that's all being spoken to and prophesied and promised in the Old Testament, and it's being explained in the New. We need to read the word with so much more urgency, not because we're running out of time. I mean more, this is who the word is, what reveals him. And so if everything is about him, then I want to know him in the expression of his word. And I think that we often, people are like, well, I'm going to, read on a schedule. And I'm not saying that's bad, but I think learning to study is an important thing. And that can involve like reading other books. And I know that sounds weird, but as I read the book on the incarnation, now I'm studying scripture through a different lens. And so it just changes things. Becoming a student of the word means being aware of some of the more scholarly sources and reading the word with intention, not just to get through the chapter. So I think that's the first thing that I want to admonish people to do, is to just get to know the word.
And people can say, well, what should I think about, or how would I start, or something. I think one of the big things for me was it's the shift that happens. An example would even be just our language. So everybody knows, how do you get saved? You ask Jesus into your heart. You bring Jesus into you because you're the hero of your own story. And now that you have a new vigor, new life, and are saved and found in him, that you can go out and become the maximum expression of Christian guy and something, help old ladies with groceries. That's not flip it. Now it's recognizing that's not it. It's I'm found in him. He's the point. He's the purpose. He's the fulfillment of everything that exists and ever will exist, and it's all bound and wrapped up and caught up in him. It's not about asking Jesus into my heart. It's about recognizing that when you become a citizen of that kingdom, when you recognize the truth that he is the Messiah who's come and all things are found in him, and you become hidden in him, you kind of go into him, so to speak. And I know that's not theology words, and I'm probably once again butting up against blasphemy or something like that, but it's something more like that. Your life changes now. Your focus changes now. It's not about how can I maximize the benefit of a Christian lifestyle in order to get what I want. It's how does showing up within the truth of that Christian walk and that Christian life, how does it fulfill his will, his goal, his desire, the Father's will through Christ in me? What do I do now in the world? How do I show up the right way, or the best way, or the maximum way? It's something like that.
I agree. I was actually looking at my notes, so now I lost the last sentence, so I'm faking that I know exactly what I'm agreeing with. Sorry, it's episode 2. I'm getting tired. I'm old. We already talked about this. I'm old. I got so distracted with, wait, what's my next point? This is really hard, people. It's not easy to keep track of our points.
Well, I think it's just the idea of flipping it around. And that once you start examining and looking and saying, it's not your church is wrong. It's not that they're wrong, but they're also not entirely right. And getting that opportunity to see how do some of these things shift and change. And just by the nature of the truth, of recognizing the truth in those things, you will show up differently. Your life will become differently. You can't help but think differently.
Yes, and I think I have that in another point, but understanding and seeing, I hate this term, the heart of God, but seeing the heart of God in the fulfillment of all his purposes in Christ, I think you are transformed by what that reveals about him and his character and his desire to be reconciled to us. So I might touch on that again later. I can't remember because I'm looking at my notes all the time. My second thing was a reaction that we need to have to the incarnation is that we need to start viewing suffering differently. And I maybe touched on that a little bit when we talked about Christ living a lifetime as he becomes aware of who he is, the intensity of the outside Adam type world pressing in upon the deity that he carried with him. There was this constant tension. It's kind of, I don't know, I'm thinking in superhero movies when like the Hulk gets bigger. That's another example I have in my mind where he starts to kind of grow. I think the burden of understanding and then the battle of him to be the obedient son, to fulfill the role he was supposed to fill perfectly, it becomes harder and harder and harder. And we know by age 12, he knows who he is. So by that point, it's settled in, but it's not like this was an easy childhood. I don't watch The Chosen. I'm imagining that when they covered this, he was skipping in the streets playing with his friends. I'm not saying that never happened, but you have to begin to see that the level to which he suffered is to be compassionate with us, but on some level, it was so much more than what we will ever experience because he was experiencing it as God himself. And so there's that growing tension. But as that happened, he became more aware and confident of who he was. And I think it's not like he became more deity as time went on. So he always was God. But the circumstances of his life, the suffering he encountered, the instruction of the word, those things began to show him who he was. They don't make him what he was. They show him. And so in the same way, we are like him in the walk we're called to walk in. We are made like Christ. We are positioned in the heavenly realms. We own everything we can own as far as righteousness. But it's a lifetime of circumstances and especially suffering that whittle away and reveal to our own selves the confidence of who we are. And then that also is a testimony to other people. More and more, you will see the life that he walked out. He asks us to walk out as well, but he did it in such a way that it's encouraging. I don't know if that makes any sense.
No, it does, because a lot of times I think we'll think of the idea of, I don't want to sin because I don't want to make God cry. And then we think of this amorphous, big, huge, long flowing hair and beard guy, up in a mountain in a cloud on a throne, a golden throne with light shooting out of everything. It's this very impersonal, almost impossible to relate to, more, amorphous concept versus the idea of recognizing Christ was a real person, had a real humanity to him, and that there is a grit your teeth and, bear through it kind of reality that shows up. It's not, if he can do it, I can do it. It's not like that, but it's more like he did this, so I don't have to, which almost makes me want to then like fight even harder or struggle even more or like buckle down and pray and take those extra few steps that I probably wouldn't do if it was just this ethereal bearded man on a golden throne in the cloud someplace that I couldn't even relate to. I couldn't even understand. There's something about not wanting to disappoint a real person. It's something like that.
I think too, so in saying that we need to reinterpret suffering, I think there's an accidental tone to every American church that suffering is something to be avoided and comfort. And so even the way we react to one another's suffering, we are surprised by it and we are discouraged by it. And I am not saying that I am not both of those things to any of the circumstances that I have not really appreciated in my life. As you begin to see the value of what was revealed in him as he bore under that kind of intense suffering in a lifetime, I think that you become less surprised by suffering and you understand that it is such a weapon for us in order to reveal to ourselves who we are in Christ and more of who he is. And those things are not accomplished apart from suffering. And so in a weird way, I think that's what Paul means. I haven't studied that passage extensively, but to share in his sufferings. When you go through suffering and trials and hardship, there's a reason you feel closer to the Lord as you go through that, because you are walking with him in something that he intimately bore under. I don't know if that translates to other people or not. That might be too, I don't know, ethereal.
Too abstract or, yeah. No,
yeah, something like that.
But I think that that's accurate, though, and I think that there's a correctness to it. If you get anything, the idea is, yes, too many churches, unfortunately, are operating under the idea that it's something like, if you're suffering, then, or if something's wrong, then that means something's not right. And that's not exactly correct. Right. Things can be right and things can be in their correct place, and you can still be suffering. And it's not, suffering isn't something to ward off or fight against the way that at least the Western sensibilities has it. I mean, even, people on food stamps and like government assisted housing or whatever have air conditioning, and we live, generally speaking, better than kings did, 200, 250 years ago. At a minimum, the founders of the country, we live better than they do, even the poorest amongst us. So the idea that that's something that we want to alleviate, like, that's a problem. It's like oh, you have a cold? Oh, we need to get rid of that immediately. Go to the store and get whatever. That's not necessarily what we're called to do as far as a Christian life goes. If anything, I would argue Paul's like diatribe of, I've been beaten with sticks, I've been shipwrecked twice, I've been bitten by snakes, I've been this, I've been that. He starts going down the list, and I do it all because, and I would happily do it again. It's like,
and that's kind of because the sufferings that he bore under revealed to others what was, I write it better than I say it. Suffering is the means by which who I am is revealed to me and others. So my life, like his, is the working out of the manifestation of what is already true. My life circumstances have incredible value as they divinely work to reveal to a watching world what God has already worked within us. We are a living testimony to the theory of already but not yet. I am already all I will ever be in Christ, but the progression of suffering will reveal what that looks like. So we are, in our new creationness of our new humanity, we are the walking testimony to the faithfulness of God because we are transformed. On a spiritual level, we are something other that is only revealed by suffering. I get it. You don't have to go out and stand in front of a Mack truck to have suffering or something. If you're living, you're going to encounter suffering. So if it's not today, sit tight. It's coming tomorrow. So it doesn't ever leave you alone. So that was one of the thoughts I had about that. I really am gloom and doom, aren't I?
No,
Sorry.
but I want to touch on something that you talked about. You must have talked about an episode and episodes and episodes ago. The time to get solid in your walk with Christ and the time to know who he is when you're not, if things are going pretty smooth right now, now's the time to get your feet all the way up to your knees in the thicket of who he is, because you are going to experience suffering. And the last thing that you're going to want to do is start trying to play catch up when the burdens of the world are almost too much for you to bear. Get grounded now, get in place now, recognize the truth of what's going on. So when that does happen, it's not like it's going to be easy, but it's not going to be this overwhelming thing where you feel like you're going to break. And not all the time, at least. Something like that.
It's an anchor. Yeah, it's definitely an anchor. And I think there are other limitations to our ability to have these things learned. Like we talked about already, we're getting old and dumb. I can't study the way I used to study. I can't articulate the way I used to articulate. I sometimes can't write the same way I used to write. So it's frustrating, but at the same time, I know that won't get better. That will get worse just because that's what age looks like. It's what seasons of life look like. So there's a part where there's times when I realize that and I think, run harder. You have to run harder. And it's not to achieve something, it's to know something. There's a huge difference. If this is the only thing that matters, why aren't we saturated in it? Why are we bored with it? I'm not saying I wake up every day and can't wait to read my Bible. That's not what I'm saying. But I care about the things of the word way more than I did 10 years ago. So there's just something there. Anyway, I feel like we're preaching.
Imagine a Christian podcast. Yeah. All right. So what else you got for us?
Let's see. The next one kind of sounds like the one before. It was that we must see that it takes a lifetime. So it involves the idea of suffering. This is different than just the suffering concept. It is embracing that there's a lifetime pattern of a walk that looks like this. Whereas above, where I'm reading my notes, whereas above, because that's how it's written in my thing. Sorry. So, before we were talking about how suffering shapes us versus this portion, which will flesh out how it was a complete life and process by which we now benefit. The whole thing, and I think I touched on it in the last episode, was to emphasize that the way in which Christ lived has as much value as the life that was offered. So the humanity, the longevity, the commitment, the forbearance, all of those things are an encouragement to us because we are not saved and then taken to another reality. We stay here. And there is a mimicry of our lives to his. And that struck me years ago when someone was like, well, he was placed within flesh and he was asked to walk out a perfect, God-honoring life with the only tool in his pocket being the Holy Spirit. And I thought, that's what he's given to us. So he's not asking me to do something that he can't relate to. There's just an amazing amount of comfort in that, I think. I don't know. What are your thoughts?
Well, and that caters or reinforces the idea of relationship. There, he's not asking us to do anything that he hasn't already done himself, and so much so that he was the only one that could have even done it in the first place. So he was the one that bore all the burdens. He was the one that paid the price. He was the one that did all of that. And then he's saying it's the idea, once again, of being caught up in him. And so we're to then go walk that out as best as we can with him as that guide, him as that cutout, the stencil, the template, and recognize and then while recognizing the truth of who we are now found hidden in him. And that's the encouragement. It's like kind of what we were talking about before, is that the idea, when first century Jews were reading Revelation, it was encouraging. There are all these different stories, and the idea of being excited about the truth of the gospel and what that is, it's encouraging. There is encouragement that's here. There's hope that's here. There's all these things are found and bound and wrapped up and summed up in who he is, that to walk away with the idea of, I just can't wait to die. I can't wait to get out of here. I can't wait to just leave this mortal coil so I can finally have all of the things that I currently have right now. I'm just not able. I just don't want to do put it forth the effort to see the truth of what it is now, see the things that are unseen. It's something like that. It's like, what is going on, man? I mean, did anybody think all of this would be easy? Like, doesn't Jesus say something like, everybody hates me, guys, and your life's going to suck too. Let's go do this. You know what I mean? It's like, oh no, I became Christian to make my life better. I'm like, I don't know, man. I don't think that's exactly how it shows up that way, but it's because what you value changes. Everything changes. And you don't want the same stuff you wanted before.
And it should get harder, not easier. I think I wrote it here. This is what I'm trying to find. Our path mimics his. We will live as a new creature who lives in contradiction to the culture around us. There should be a tension. There should be circumstances that slowly, over a lifetime, reveal his finished work within us. It should be harder. The more you grow, the more you will not look like this world, and the more that's going to become apparent to you. It will be a growing tension, I think, in the same way it was for him. He didn't just get on the cross and feel the weight of the human sin that he was going to bear. I think it's a lifetime of that pressure of the surrounding culture and him being something other and pushing out against this overwhelming sin environment. We're doing the same thing. So if it's not hard, I don't know if you're doing it right. I say mean things all the time, don't I?
It sounds nicer when it comes from you. Usually when I'm saying mean stuff, I'm like shouting, spittle's coming out, and I got a furrow in my brow,
Well, and I mean, if you're 16 and you're listening and it's not that hard yet, I'm not saying that everything has to be hard, but like as a growing believer, I'm looking at 35 years, I think, being saved. And some of these light bulb moments are just happening now, so it takes time. But I think, living in contradiction to the world around me is harder than it used to be because I've grown more. So that's kind of what I'm saying. I don't expect people to immediately have that kind of maturity or something, but that's what.
Well, even then though, I mean, you also see it showing up with even younger people today. People that are in their 20s. I can only imagine what it's like to live in this technological age that we're in and have everything at your fingertips. When I was a kid, at least if I wanted to see a dirty magazine, like you had to go to the neighbor kid's house or it was something more like that. It wasn't, I had a device in my pocket that all I had to do was type a few things and it was instantaneous and it was already there. As one example, a quick and easy example, it's the temptations that exist in the world. They're all still the same. It's just the accessibility or the ever pervasive pressing in ever presence of it. It's not like it was never there before, but it's almost like it's come into the home, into your life, and it's pressing in on you even more and more. And I don't know how a lot of the younger kids manage it. If they even, I mean, obviously not all of them are, you know?
Well, and I'm not sure if I think Abe's been interviewed, so I can say his name, right? Because you speak with Abe quite frequently.
Yeah.
But he was at a Bible study where they break into groups and, different people speak, but you have a leader, but everybody's talking about the passages. And they're going through the Sermon on the Mount. And of course, it was the if you've lusted in your heart, you've lusted, basically, you've committed adultery. And everybody's kind of tiptoeing around this is really about pornography at this point in the discussion. They won't say it. So he does finally say it. But the more shocking thing was they were talking about when he says, if your eye offends you, poke out your eye. If your arm offends you, cut that off. And they're all trying to figure out what they think it means. And his response was that we should have such a sense of responsibility as men over our actions that our reaction to sin should be violent. The caution, the apprehension of all of the things that's as violent as it should be, that I would poke my eye out. It's not like that's what I'm supposed to go do, but that's how I'm supposed to see this particular issue, that being lust. That's a different concept. And of course, everybody's looking at him like, I'm used to getting that look at Bible studies, so I understand. The point being, shoot, I'm having your problem right now. Oh, I know what it is. I got it. He also, he hinted at it in the interview we did with him in just engaging in media and the presence of pornography. And so in his life, he has opted to not have any social media, like at all. And so he said, you cannot be engaged in any form of social media and not have that come in some form at some point. And he goes, I just have to consider it done. That's his violent reaction to it, because he understands the incredible pressing in of that around him. And there's no other way to evade it than to just cut it out. So I think that's an idea, that growing tension of which kingdom do I belong to? How am I going to act right now? And how extreme do my measures need to be in order that I am? I don't know.
And if we take a look at, Christ, once again, being that cutout and being that template, like his response and reaction to all of that was incredibly extreme. He went through with everything. He went through and followed the Father's will all the way to the conclusion of him being, nailed to the cross. Uh-huh. That's the level of commitment that he has. And then once again, we're sitting here going, do I really need to give up Instagram though? I can just put a filter on there, can't I? It's like, oh, well, way to be committed, guys. Yeah. And I'm not saying get rid of your Instagram, obviously, but it is that level of commitment of whatever it is that's going on, and knowing who you are enough that you're going to take it that seriously and do what you can in order to put your best foot forward, so to speak, just recognizing the truth of what it is. And once again, that Christ isn't asking you at any point to do anything that he didn't do himself. Mm-hmm. So there's that one-to-one that's there.
Yeah. And I would say that I think the main point of the Sermon on the Mount was a admonishment to the nation of how they had not met the standard, but also a strong indicator of what the new kingdom looks like. So his answer, I think, is incredibly on point, because I think that is what we're called to do, to see the old nature and the old way of doing human as that offensive to us that we have such a strong reaction. So I thought that was an interesting interpretation of that passage, because I hadn't heard it before he said it. So good job, son. Good job. My mini me. Can I say that? When he was growing up, I was like, oh my gosh, there couldn't be a kid more different than me. He was extroverted and he wanted to have people over all the time. And I was like, and he was laid back and not stressed about anything. And then he became an adult, got married, and had a household. And now he's me. It's the greatest thing ever.
That's way more true than you probably realize. So it's funny.
I'm sorry to his wife. I really am sorry. It's just every so often she'll tell a story. I'm like, oh, that's me. I'm sorry. I did that. I made him that way. I think another thing I had was in light of understanding this, when we understand the humanity, the life of Christ in which he lived, and then how that is, for lack of a better word, transferred to us at our salvation. So now we are a new creation and we walk in that type of humanity. We can possess that. So we have an obligation to live as citizens of a different kingdom. And so that's going to largely involve figuring out what this new kingdom he was talking about is, and understanding our identification with Christ, to be crucified with Christ, to be raised up with him. All of those ideas need to become more central in our thinking, in my opinion, because that's how we know we're a new creature. So we need to understand the process by which that happened. And I think we talked about that a little bit the last episode. I think in my notes I had said, we ought to understand that we are not who we once were, and we don't serve the same reality we once did. So growth as a citizen of this new kingdom looks like knowing the new you. And so that sounds like, oh my gosh, that sounds like a self-help book, doesn't it? Knowing the new you. This book I'm going to write.
Once again, though, but they're right next to each other. They really are.
And the new me is defined by him. It's like what you were saying earlier, the being taken up into. It's not because I took something into me. I am crucified with Christ. Christ isn't crucified with me. I mean, so everything is by living on Christ. That is just got to be a foundational statement.
And the self-help stuff is all about you. It's all about you changing the inside you and the inner you and all that.
Yeah, which I never liked self-help books because I'm a negative person. I'm sure Kelly liked them. I hated them. My dad used to listen to those. I think maybe I've talked about it on the show before, those like business positive thinking things. And I remember I was like in 5th grade and I was in the car and I thought, this is dumb.
Zig Ziglar and those things. Yeah.
Yeah. I'm like, you can't change things. So just thinking they're different. And I was like, and so Kelly would probably have heard that and been like, this is the greatest message ever, because she's positive. I'm not positive. So anyway, I think those were the things I thought people should take in. The last thing that, and I think I touched on it last night, was we know and understand that his walk of humanity allows him to be a sympathetic priest. So he is able to relate with our suffering and the plight of just being in this world and being contrary to it. So that is something that we have. But I've had people in the past that would say, well, Jesus never had cancer, or Jesus was never divorced, or so how can he really understand? He couldn't possibly have experienced everything that we experience as humans. And my argument would be that in circumstances, no, he did not experience every circumstance. But I think every range of experience and emotion that he had as he bore up this lifetime would apply to all of those. And like, just spend some time thinking about what it is to be God in flesh and walk in contradiction to the world around you, and to have nobody know who you are. Nobody understand you. Most people don't like you. Even the people who think they understand you don't understand you. You're lied about, are stoned. They're picking up stones to stone him. He is experiencing all of it, the isolation, the fear without sin. I don't know what we call that, but just what Gethsemane is. All of those things. There isn't a circumstance I've faced in my life that has an emotion that I don't believe he has experienced in those 33 years. And that is why it had to be a lifetime as well. If he just showed up as a full-grown man, died on the cross, I don't think it means the same thing. But I have a high priest who does sympathize with all of the circumstances that he has designed for my sanctification. So that was my last point.
The humanity, let's go with, but even just the Israel part of it, he shows up and he lives the life all of them should have been living the entire time, and they were so far away from it, none of them could recognize it. Similarly to the way that a lot of things that are going on within the church happening today. The gospel's been so watered down, the gospel's been so neutered, and the gospel's been so focused. All you have left is only the key part of the gospel, which everything is summed up in Christ and in his sacrifice and being the propitiation, for all of us. You at a certain point, you can't get rid of that, because then you literally get rid of the entire thing. But That's all that there is. It's not all of the other things that go around with it. Like we talked about before, the gospel is this umbrella, and part of it is that Jesus was the perfect sacrifice, for the sins of humanity. That's in there. It's a big part of it, but it's still part of it. There's a lot more that's going on. And with this watered down Christianity that we have in many cases that, we use as kind of a tagline for some of the things that we've done for the show, it gets to a point where it gets so watered down, so diluted that you don't even have anything to really grab onto anymore. And you don't have a nook or cranny in order to grab onto to try to start scaling what it means to have that walk with Christ. Why do I say all of this? Because just focusing on just the incarnation and just looking at it and recognizing and seeing some of the key points that you made in this episode and the key points that you made in the last episode, just pick any one of them and start dwelling on it, start looking at it, start running it through that filter, start recognizing and do the mental exercise. Okay, what does this actually mean? How did this show up in his day? What does it look like today? How come people at his time couldn't recognize it? Can we recognize it today if it showed up? You start asking these kind of questions, you start getting this fuller, more complete picture. And all of a sudden, the folly of all the people that failed, like from Adam to Israel to the kid down the street who's, smoking weed all the time, it becomes more relatable as well. It becomes more, tangible. You're not as separate. And then all of a sudden, seeing the truth of the gospel of who Jesus is and how he showed up, it's not that white guy, white beard, white-haired, golden throne, light in the clouds kind of intangible thing where you're stuck in this middle gap period and you don't really have anything to do or an identity to grab onto. So you're just, I love Jesus, guys. And then you put that bumper sticker on the car. All I'm saying is that there's more to it. And these are the pieces and these are the places that if you don't know where to go, these are the places to start.
And I think when it is reduced just to the offering that he has made and that covers my sin and now I'm saved, whatever. Sorry, there's a bug flying at my face. Sorry, everybody. When we, as the church has kind of watered it down to the basic of that, which isn't necessarily wrong, but what comes after is also the incredibly relational part of it. Like you are saved unto a relationship. And so the cross is the means to something. It isn't the end of something. And so to just leave it as now you are saved and you either going to go to heaven or you can feel safe about your future or whatever it is, but to not bring it to the walking in fellowship with him and then the relationship is it's ending before the story's over. The cross is a means to an end. It is not the end. And so I think it was a big deal in the 80s to say it's a relationship. So it always feels weird when I say that, but it's a relationship. And it has to be, there's more to it than just accepting that basic truth that, I know it was the blood and then that's it. I feel like I'm saying the same thing over and over. It's probably because I'm tired and old.
Your brain's not working as good anymore either, just like mine.
No, not past 7:30.
I'm still not used to the fact that when I look in the mirror, all I see is gray. It still kind of freaks me out a little bit because in my head, I think I'm younger when I'm definitely not.
And the thing that I think almost every day is I'm so glad that I'm a girl because I can wear makeup and at least covers up the evidence. But guys, you just have to bear it. You just look what you look like. So, and if you wear makeup, you're a little weird.
Yeah, pretty much, huh? A little, okay. So if you were to kind of, then we'll kind of close, but if you were to kind of sum up the idea of the last two episodes, the idea of the incarnation, and kind of put that all together in maybe one or two sentences, what would be something that you hope that people would kind of walk away from with what we've talked about and why this matters? And what would you want them to walk away with?
I kind of thought that because normally I do like a board for Bible study, and I had thought, I think the title of the board should be, if you don't understand anything I've said, please walk away with these two things, or whatnot. I primarily think a good starting point for understanding this is to start thinking about that the reconciliation of God with his creation exists in the person of Christ. So that happens at the conception. So that harmony is achieved in that work. So that starts to define how we view the role of the humanity in that, because this is God made one with man. And so that man the life he lives will be the life that I am partaking in. And so that has value. This is probably way too theoretical, but so basic is that reconciliation between God and man and his creation is at the point of conception. That would be a big one. The other one would be to not diminish the humanity part of this incarnation and the lifetime, because that lifetime of perfect humaning is what I inherit. That's a good word I was looking for earlier. I inherit those works of Christ, that perfect humanity, understanding that the perfect humanity and the weight of a lifetime of that has such value because it's what we inherit. I do think that has a lot of value to learn. Is that too theoretical? I don't know.
No, I don't think so. I think that it all pretty much sums up everything quite nicely. So if you've learned something new or got another perspective that maybe you didn't have before with today's episode, thank you very much for sticking with us all the way to the end and watching. We definitely hope that you do get some insights in different ways of thinking and different ways of looking at some of the topics that we kind of talk about on the show. And hopefully it'll kind of kickstart you a little bit into maybe asking a few questions or examining some ideas, and just maybe if you feel like you're stuck in the mud and you're in that watered down church, that these are places that you can start and kind of start looking at and realizing there is a larger, you're not crazy. There's a larger picture out there, and it's just not being addressed in unfortunately in many different places within Christendom. So thank you very much for watching us. Thank you very much. I don't know why I always have a problem with the closing.
Thank you for joining us. And we'll
there we go.
Later.
That's what I was looking for. Bye now. Hey, thanks for listening to Naughty versus Nice. If this episode hit home for you, or, got us stepped on your toes a little, but in a good way, go ahead and like, follow, and leave us a review. It helps us out way more than you can possibly know. We're on all the socials at Naughty versus Nice. That's VERSUS Nice. And if you believe in what it is that Laura and I are doing, you can definitely pop on over to patreon.com/Naughty versus Nice and give us a hand there as well. Thanks for walking this road with us as we have these conversations, talk about these wider concepts, and discuss what it means to be followers of Christ. We really appreciate you joining us, and we'll talk at you next time.